Okay, for people joining our live stream, this is about new features in Wolfram Language, now post version 12, because version 12 is wrapped up and hopefully coming out very soon. Actually, hopefully coming out next Tuesday there. So
in the agenda, we have 3 documentation things and then 4 new functions.
Okay.
So there is some wording on a couple of tables that I would like you to review.
But by the way, do I need to update, or is this very recently updated, or is this
You updated in the previous meeting, so that's enough.
Okay, fine. You have a lot of background noise, by the way, Jose. I just rustling.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. The axiomatic theory. Why is this experimental?
Well, we decided that the axiomatic theory itself.
It's experimental. Sorry, I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah. So the first 2 tables are about the entities with theories we support, and yes, I wanted you to look at what I wrote, and the editor was also pointing out the same thing.
I don't believe in this. I'm sorry. You know, the fact. Oh boy. See, I mean, the fact is, an axiom system is just an axiom system. The fact that it has a model in terms of some particular operator is just an interpretation. See what I'm saying?
Yes, but we are offering the axioms in a very definite way. For example, we now depend on the fact that it's equational logic. And so, and that limits us in what we can express at the moment.
Yeah, when are we going to get? Well, I don't know what's happened to the whole. What's happened to the resolution theorem proving stuff? By the way, this isn't auto-completing correctly. See that? It's not auto-completing.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, there's no tagging there. That's why.
Okay, so this isn't using NAND. This is using dot.
Yes, because we replace NAND by dot. So if you do axiomatic theory Wolfram axioms, operators.
I see. That's the NAND-like operator.
Exactly, which the user can replace by whatever they want.
Oh boy. I mean, I have to say, boy. I mean, that's a discovery interface there. Do we even mention that discovery interface?
What do you mean?
The axiomatic theory open close.
Oh, in the examples. Yeah.
We shouldn't do it just in the examples. If it's real, we should do it in the main documentation.
Okay, we can add a new line.
Yeah. I mean, if we really think this is the right way to do it, to have the open close, gives a list of supported axiom. I'm not wild about that.
In a lot of Packlet pages, we only document it as a note rather than in the main usage.
Yeah.
And there are inconsistencies, like some use, and some of them open bracket, open close bracket is the same thing as all, the symbol all, and in others they're different. And so, yeah, and I don't know if axiomatic theory supports the all.
It doesn't.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not thrilled about that. I mean, personally, I think the better approach to this would be to treat these things more like we treat. Well, what is the discovery interface for things like named classifiers? I mean, there's a whole bunch of cases where we have essentially See, I mean, okay, what I had originally thought we would do here is to have a repository for these. Then every one of those axiom systems would get its own documentation page, which I don't think would be bad.
Yes, but this is what we followed from some time ago. I mean, this is written because at some point you requested that we write the table of all systems we support currently.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know exactly what to write on the...
Okay, but so wait a minute. Supports the following properties. We should have that first.
Okay.
Okay.
Then we have a group dedicated to Boolean algebra, and then the rest dedicated to algebraic theories. So
Fine. By the way, there's a very noise in your... No, that's. I think it's Jose, actually.
Well, I was going to comment that the tagging in that notebook is wrong because those properties are being tagged as for the first argument. So that's why. So
what does that mean?
Right, it should be tagged as for the second argument, right? So if you try to type in, one of those in the second,
these ones should be tagged for the first argument, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's look at these. Supports the following theories for Boolean algebra. Supports.
Supports the following and including sounds weird.
No, that's wrong. I did not like Mr. McCune, but we're being very nice here.
Perhaps we don't need to specify the operators in the Boolean algebra section.
I think that's right. But if we're going to do that, we could say paren 6 axioms six standard axioms. Then we could just say operators, blah, blah, blah. Does that make some sense? And then just say operator NAND.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I like that.
You shouldn't say explicitly commutative. well, okay, you can handle the rest of this. Okay, what is happening to us adding additional axiomatic theories?
So Jan is looking into this. So the thing is that, as I said, because right now we depend on equational theory, we cannot add many more than this.
But we got lattice theory and all kinds of other random things.
Yes, and via Lean or other solvers, we will be able to handle first order theory in general.
Okay. I'm adding. If we don't get to this any other time, this is a good summer school project for somebody to add axiomatic theories to this. Because, I mean, lattice theory, ring theory, all these kinds of things. Well, we've got rings there. We don't have lattices. We don't have, squogs or whatever they're called. There's a whole bunch of other ones.
Yes, but something like fields is not describable in equational logic.
I understand that. So we need to get that. Mm-hmm. And okay, what happened to our temporal logic effort?
We had a meeting, and I think in that meeting we discovered that your view of temporal logic is wider than what we were doing.
Yes.
So we are now restarting working on on our projects related to time and time description, etc.
Right. Okay. So that's a post 12.0 thing, and that's very good.
Yeah.
I hope we're going to get trees as well.
Yes. I have to talk with Tony, and that he has other things to do. Yeah, we should work on that.
For the hoi polloi, what's temporal logic?
It's logic where you talk about time, like you say, like it has, for the whole future, and you can ask questions like, can you give a good example, Jose?
Yeah, so it's an extension of propositional logic in which you have operators like until, and you can include comparisons of time moments.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So truth values depend on time. And so something can be true for this period of time and then false.
Right. And what's tricky is things that last a week and start sometime in the future. How do they overlap with something? Are they before or after something which does this and that and the other? That's where it gets kind of tricky.
And what happens if the two events are space-like related?
Well, relativistic temporal logic is a whole different thing, and general relativistic temporal logic probably has never been thought about. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's absolutely ornate. I have no idea.
Okay, but all right. It just didn't occur to me that temporal actually meant temporal, but now I understand.
Yes, as opposed to spiritual or something like that.
Right.
Fair enough. Carl on the live stream is asking about when the axiomatic theory. Yes, it's in 12.0. This stuff is all in 12.0. Okay, are we on to the next thing? So
yes.
I'm sorry. I want to come back to this thing. I would like to see us make this a lightweight repository, or alternatively, possibly at least have those things be documentation pages. Right. So we've got plenty of custom documentation pages that are, you know what I'm saying, where we have a list of things, but then each one of the string names is its own special documentation page type.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not sure how important that is for these, but I mean, it doesn't really matter unless we get a lot more theories. And I mean, the total number of theories in the world may not be that large yet. You know, it's part of it. By the way, you have a lot of background noise, Jose. I don't know you sound like you're in a convertible car or something.
I'm sorry. I know somebody is in the kitchen with the microwave. I don't know.
Oh well, no. That's not what it is. It's some problem with wind noise. I don't know what the heck it is. Weird. Okay, let's look at this. Oh boy, what is all this?
No, this is simpler than it looks. So Carlos suggested that we document the multi-f case of the by functions in the definition boxes. So I just separated the various cases we have. Yes, I think it would be a good example if you go to one of them. So you see that there, for example, in the second line, we have the multi-f.
Yes.
In other cases, we have it in notes. In other cases, we don't have it, etc. So, yeah, this is a matter of just deciding whether we want the consistency of always having the multi-f case.
I would say yes on consistency, but right. I mean, the reason we haven't done it here, let's see.
So in this case, it's not even in the notes.
Well, is it? But is it implemented?
It is implemented, yes. In that case, so that's why there is a separate section called not implemented. There.
I see. So so this would be ordering by of list, comma f 1 2 3, comma dot 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 does whatever.
Yeah. So I can do that. I just wanted to know whether you agree on doing that.
I think so, but I wouldn't put it necessarily front and center in some of these things. I mean, use your judgment, because some of these may be, I mean, these are fairly obscure functions, key sort by and ordering by. Yeah, it's probably okay, but just be careful that you're not muddying up something which is otherwise a fairly simple function with some very complicated thing in the definition box. Okay? But
okay.
I mean, to me, it seems reasonable. Okay, some questions on the live stream. Would be cool to have some kind of repository framework that handles basic repository infrastructure. That is exactly what we have. That is exactly what the resource system is. And that's what resource object is all about. Everything is based on resource object. Where's that? Okay. Yeah. So that's exactly what we have. Unfortunately, every single repository, whether it's the function repository, the neural net repository, each one of these has different pieces of the resource object, but different things in its resource objects, but they're all handled in a unified way and underneath. The ability for users to stand up their own repositories is something that hopefully we will be getting to, but we still have some more examples to build out. We've never had a purely cookie cutter, very simple repository. Everyone has had its own special features of, like the neural net repository has to have special stuff for training, evaluation networks for training networks and so on. When is the cloud being updated to version 12? Now, it's a funny thing you ask that, because the answer is, does anybody remember what the answer is from this morning's meeting?
I think sometime this week.
That's what I think too.
Yep.
I think like maybe.
Right, isn't it today?
I think it's today. Yes.
Last I heard, I wasn't in this morning's meeting, but last I heard it was today. I suppose I can probably do a really quick check.
Well, I'm trying to go there and it's not even connecting, which is super upsetting. That's really weird.
Maybe it's updating right now, which is why you can't connect.
It's really bad that I can't connect. What's going on?
Network is unreachable.
Oh my gosh, how could that possibly be? Well, we're all effectively on the internal network.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
How
could that possibly be?
Let me disconnect and I'll be here I'm logging in from a computer.
There's apparently some network issue here. So who knows? It'll hopefully get resolved quickly. Okay, let's continue here. Document addition of key value pairs to association.
Yeah, so this is another pair of suggestions. This one from Roman. He wanted to mention in a note that these actual operation creates a new association.
Definitely, we should say that.
And then, yes, I think it was you who suggested that these ways of adding new keys, new pairs, key values to the association should be documented.
What is this doing?
It's dropping the duplicate key.
Right.
And it's effectively flattening an association. I didn't know that worked. I didn't know that worked at all.
It can be the arguments to an association can be any combination of rules, list of rules, and association.
I didn't know that. That's very useful. Okay, great. Yeah, we should document that. Why don't you propose documentation for that?
Okay. So now we have the 4 new things. So this is a suggestion from you. And there is a meta question here, important for ILD, which is how do we decide in the future when a function should be for ILD or for the Wolfram function repository?
That is a really good question, and I don't know the answer yet. I mean, look, let's look at the history, okay? The history is things got put in standard packages and they sat there for decades. And some things in standard packages were widely used. And while nobody like myself really liked using stuff from standard packages, one did it from time to time. Now, the function repository, I just don't know how that's going to evolve, whether it's going to be, it's a specialized thing, so it's from the function repository and that's okay, or whether one's always going to be a little nervous if it's from the function repository. I don't think one is going to be that nervous. I think it's going to be quite, oh boy, we're not even connecting to that. Wow. Okay, well, so much for the function repository.
So because this was a function with a simple implementation, I was wondering whether this would be a relatively clear case for.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think I agree with you. We'd have to go through a collection of functions and then decide which ones we decide to send to the Wolfram repository and which ones we preserve here.
I think that what's going to happen is we're going to put them in the repository. They're going to sit there. They're going to have some design changes. They're going to be put in the system. Some fraction are going to go into the system.
I see.
That's what I think is going to happen. And I think that, which is a little bit similar to what's happened with standard packages, but I mean, the bad case there is that there's a function in the repository. I mean, again, we can do the same thing. I mean, we just put a stripe saying this has been moved to system and is not necessarily compatible. But you can continue using the repository version if you want to.
Right.
I'm being told that things are loading right now. Let me see. No, they're not.
It's loading for me now.
Well, nothing's loading for me. Okay. So that's all I have to say about that right now. I mean, if we could look at the function repository, we could discuss that more clearly. I mean, I think it will be useful to go through, every month probably, and do a survey of function repository things and say, which things should we consider?
As candidates for system functions.
Yes.
I see.
But we're just not ready for this yet. We don't know.
Right.
The inverse of pluralize.
Yeah, so it has been suggested that we create a singularized function, but then it happens that pluralize, 1 is some sort of singularization function.
Is that documented?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, in some languages, we'll have things which are where it's 2 of something. Anybody here know a language where that happens? I mean, in Greek, ancient Greek, that happened.
Hebrew, at least for certain words.
Yeah, Japanese has a whole bunch for counting words, potentially.
Okay. Well, it is a little weird to have singularized be. I mean, so long as it's in the documentation for, I mean, we don't even show an example of dogs. Does it work if we say pluralize?
It doesn't remove them right now. I mean, the main thing right now is the algorithm. I guess the Conway algorithm they used doesn't remove pluralization. And we talked to the NLP group, and they said, they can potentially look at some machine learning options for this, or there's word stemming options. Word stem on dogs would give you back dog, but it isn't.
Word stem is cuts off way too much of it. It's just a standard algorithmic word stem.
Right. Yeah. So basically what we need is something either custom or to cast a wider net for algorithms to look at for singularize. But I think the initial question we had was, would singularize be useful as a standalone function, or should it really just be wrapped up as an argument form of pluralize?
Right. I think we should make it work first before we worry about that.
For sure.
Singularize is a very, very weird word. And I don't know what you would call it. I mean, let's find out if it can work first. I don't think it's the most important thing in the world. I think it's also, actually, I have to say, I'm inclined to add it as one of these student project ideas. Because I think that right, I'm going to. I mean, I think it will be called depluralize. That's the that seems like the most plausible. Singularize is just the wrong thing because there's so many other singularities in this world.
Right. Yeah. Depluralize seems like a good name. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, if we have something on that, I think that it's good. It's a good summer school type project. It's a good machine learning project for somebody to try, and it may or may not work with machine learning. I assume, and I don't know, does it work in languages other than English? Does pluralize work in languages other than English?
The algorithm used for it's specific to English, so there's no language option right now, but there certainly should be. That, again, maybe a project for someone of summer school or someone to spend more time researching to look at different pluralization schemes for other languages.
Okay. Yeah, actually, that's I mean, we should. Okay. Whatever happened to our inflections project, inflected words, word inflections project?
I know nothing about it. Who was working on it?
Well, I think Nick might know about it. I think it's an Alan Joyce project.
Yeah, I don't remember the specifics. I mean, there'd been various discussions about, the different inflected forms associated with data in the word data or dictionary.
Yeah, right. I mean, the main point is you've got to be able to say, this tense, the future perfect of
cleave or
will have been cleaving, whatever it is, whatever the right form is.
Yeah.
right?
I always use cleave because it's one of the most irregular verbs in English. But
what is its aorist, or what's its past part? Cloven? No, can't possibly be. Cleaved.
Yeah, cleave, clove, cleft, cloven, cleavage. Yeah, there's a bunch of.
All right. Okay, so that's that on that. So nothing really to do with this right now, except that unfortunately pluralize. Wait a minute, what is this showing? I see. Dog, comma, one gives dog, but if you start off with dogs plural, it doesn't depluralize to dog.
Yeah, I think pluralize of comma one simply gives the word
itself. Yes.
Yeah, or when you give a pair, it gives the first one.
And no doubt pluralize comma 0 doesn't say dogless.
Right. Right. It should give the form that you would give for that word being given to, right?
0 dogs. That should actually be the correct thing. Given pluralize here would be dog. Yeah, it did that actually.
Exactly.
It did that. Did the right thing.
Exactly.
Because you say 0 dogs.
Exactly.
Right. Sandra on a live stream is commenting that he likes the function repository and has already contributed to it, which is terrific. I'm very enthusiastic about the function repository also. Let's see. Yeah, passing quantities to pluralize. How would that work?
Why would you want to? That's an end of.
But wait. Because well, what he means is no, that's a different thing. I mean, if you say 2 bananas, you know, like for example, collective nouns, you know, a parliament of owls, right? That is the pluralization. Okay, this is doing a different thing. That's a collectivization. I mean, an owl, the plural of owl is owls, but the collective word for a collection of owls, I believe, is a parliament of owls, if I'm not mistaken. You know, a pod of dolphins. You know what I'm saying?
A school of fish.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that is an interesting tagging for a concept, is what the collective word is. I actually think all those collective words, as I recall, some random eccentric English guy just wrote down all of these totally weird things like Parliament of Owls, and somehow they got standardized. And they don't make a lot of sense. But okay, so I mean, this is part of, you haven't yet heard it from me, but my whole theory of entity equivalences, which I am still developing, and that will be a whole discussion about the difference between a recognized owl, an owl as a concept, an owl as a species, and so on. But anyway, that's coming soon, I hope. All right, let's keep going. Symmetric difference.
Yeah, so this is a function we were planning to work on, and it has been suggested by users again that we add it. And so I was writing there the plan for the design of symmetric difference, following what region symmetric difference does, which takes a bit many arguments.
By the way, I'm sorry, on our live stream, Carl is pointing out that in Irish, Beirt, B-E-I-R-T, is 2 people. T-R-I with an accent on it, U-R, is 3 people, and so on. I see. These are counting words. Right, I understand. It's like a brace of, what is a brace of pheasants anyway? Is it a fixed number of pheasants? I don't know. But the question is, when are counting words not disembodied from what they count? In other words, when is, you know, before numbers were invented, people would probably used, I mean, who knows, but I mean, the concept that you can separate, you can factor out the number and the thing it's counting. There are probably other examples where one doesn't do that. right? You wouldn't say, well, are there examples in English? Couple, pair. Anybody know a language where there are examples other than this example in Irish?
Yeah, I mean, in Japanese, again, there's a bunch, there's a different word, a different set of counting systems for days of the week or bottles or pets. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, but if you say I have 3 bottles, you use a different word for the number of them than you would for days of the week or people. It's the same.
So how do we deal with that? I mean, in our current, when we have integer name, right? If we have integer name 3, Japanese, do we have that? I thought we had that. And by the way, why didn't that autocomplete?
I'm not sure.
Okay, is that right?
Yeah, that's the general number for.
Right. So I think for integer name we have like ordinal, cardinal.
We do. Yes, we do have some of that. But please, and Sushma, I guess, gets to be the person again for this, is let's deal with the autocomplete there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. It's equivalent to, okay, so we have those. So we have masculine, feminine, but we don't have these much more specific things.
Yeah. So, for example, it's not an integer name, but an integer string. There's both Japanese and Japanese financial, because the writing system, because 1, 2, 3, 4 are all just extra strokes. For the financial system, you use different numbers so that when you're writing a check, someone can't just add a line and add $1,000 to what you owe them.
That's an interesting bug in the writing system.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Okay, but so are you saying that that this in fact does cover everything that's needed, or are you saying that this still doesn't?
This only covers a subset of it. I mean, I think I don't know if you'd necessarily call the counting system used in Japanese as a different integer name or a different integer string. I'd have to think about it a little bit, but I can poke Alan a little bit about some of the work we're doing in broadening some of these projects for different.
Wait a second. So that's the string of that kind, but integer name is the one. I mean, I thought you said that that's the thing that is more problematic, because you're saying integer string. Are you saying I'm now totally confused? So now integer string in Japanese of 33, Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that autocompletes for some bizarre reason. It's just that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand that. So this is, what's the difference? Is it the case that there's no analog of 33 like that in Japanese?
Not really spelled out that way, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like 3 10s 3 would be.
Can we try one other example? What about another one of these? Is that the case with?
Can you try Hebrew?
For which one? Integers.
Either one or both. Okay, so that is using sort of the numerical. Okay, it's displayed backwards, but that's the word for 30 and 3.
Okay, great.
And the integer string one is using the numerological system where letters have certain values. Okay,
so does anybody know Chinese and traditional Chinese? What's the? I mean, isn't that Chinese versus simplified? Does anybody know whether these are the analog? Does traditional mean traditional as in Taiwanese versus simplified as in mainland, or something different? Anybody know here? Maybe the wrong group of people.
I'm guessing it's traditional as in classical and not.
Right.
Integer string.
Right. Shouldn't it be like traditional versus simplified? Right.
Well, yes, it would normally be.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what. But I mean, Unless this meaning of traditional is something different. Oh, there's simplified Chinese. Now I'm totally confused.
But
There's Chinese, simplified Chinese. What's the difference between... Okay, let's not get down this rat hole right now. That's the same as Japanese? Could be.
Yeah, Japanese uses the same. They use traditional. So if you do simplified Chinese, it might actually be different. But... Oh, it's still the same. Okay. Oh, yeah, so it's the same for all three. Interesting.
Okay. Well, I wonder where they differ. All right. It's a question for
Francisco?
Yeah, Francisco's group worked on this. I can.
Yeah, but also somebody who speaks Chinese, which we don't happen to have in this meeting, as it happens. Okay. Right. Let's go back to symmetric difference.
Yes. So symmetric difference we have already discussed in the past, and we are going to implement it with this design, which follows region symmetric difference. And having...
I'm getting distracted again because somebody sent through. Wait a minute. Oh, the link is wrong. No matter. Collective words, measure words in Chinese. All right. Well, this is a can of worms which we need to explore, but not right this moment. Okay, symmetric difference.
Yes. So symmetric difference will follow region symmetric difference, but then there is also Boolean region, which takes an arbitrary Boolean function.
Yes.
Of potentially various arguments. So I was wondering whether it's also worth having this. I was calling it Boolean region.
Wait a minute.
Well, sorry,
Boolean union.
Boolean union, sorry, yes.
Okay, so what does this do now? So Boolean region...
Or shouldn't it be like Boolean list or Boolean set?
I think it's going to be a weird name here because I think... Okay, so Boolean region takes the XOR... So what it's effectively doing is it's taking every point in this thing here and it's saying take the XOR of that point being present. So there's sort of an indicator function for every point in this space.
Yep.
And every point in that space.
Right.
Okay, so the analog of that would be combine lists by knowing... I don't understand. The presence or absence? No, I'm confused by what's here.
Yes, so we would start by taking the union of those two sets, and then we compare it. We compare each one against those two sets.
I see.
And so the 16 possibilities, which are actually 8 because of the symmetry, and doing that exercise, we realize it's a bit further down that we have all of the functions except for symmetric difference.
That's funny. I see. So we have, I see. So these are, so in effect, I mean, intersection is and.
Correct.
Union is or.
Right.
Complement is probably a NAND of some kind. Is it? What's NAND?
It's some sort of implies, I think.
Well, then why isn't it in this list? Since it is in the list of the 16 possibilities.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. In the 16 possibilities, we have all of the cases except for number 4, which is symmetric difference.
But that's not, but where's NAND? I mean, the case that would be your Boolean union of NAND, right? So Boolean union there. So if that Boolean function, if your Boolean union here, if I say Boolean union of NAND,
yep,
and then this, okay, so what is that doing? So that's saying not in both of them, right?
Yes. So that's, I think that's precisely symmetric difference.
Oh, it is?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Symmetric difference is precisely the union of what, right? First minus second and second minus first.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Okay, so then what's NOR? Let's find out what it does.
The empty list, perhaps?
The what?
The empty list, yeah.
Yeah, right. So the OR is the intersection. It has to be not...
Or is union. Or is union.
Right, so it's the negation of union, which means it should be the complement. Right, so it'll be the empty set, right?
Yeah, or is yes.
Is always the empty set.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, because it can't undo the union in some sense.
Right. It's right. Basically, it's taking the complement of the union in the union.
But so one issue is something feels not symmetric somehow with the use of union here. I mean, we're using union to prepare the data, and then we're picking things out of the data by using sort of the Booleanism on those original lists. But yet the thing that we've got in the end is a union of all those things. By the way, does this work with ternary functions and so on as well?
Well, yes, it does. That's if you scroll down, you get the 3 arguments case. And so there are 32 possibilities there.
Okay. So we can apply rule 30, for example, across these different, which is essentially a Boolean function of 3 arguments.
Right, correct.
Well, it'd be amusing to have Boolean union in the function repository. I don't think it makes it I don't think we need this. I mean, this seems obscure, especially since it's not exactly hard to implement. Well, it's a little tricky, isn't it?
Well, it's just because Boolean region is there. I just wanted to close the gap of the symmetry, but I do agree that this function is rarely needed.
I think it's also quite obscure because I would claim that in this function, this does not require pre-unionization, so to speak. If you understand what I'm saying. This simply takes the pixels as it sees them and does an XOR on them. Whereas in this case, because we've got discrete data, we've got to pre-unionize to decide what our universe is. Here, the universe is predefined by just all possible pixel positions. See what I'm saying?
Well, you mean we don't have the equivalent of the full space?
Right. I mean, in this case, we don't know what the universal set is. We don't have an easy way to. But in this case, we do know what the. Was that the right name? Universal set. The thing that.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Here there's a natural definition of the universal set, whereas here there is not. We have to make one up by unioning the discrete elements.
Yes, that's why union becomes especially important, and I was adding it in the name.
Right. Makes sense. So I claim that we do not need an analog of Boolean region because it's a less natural operation because of the fact that we have to do the unioning first.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, but I think it's a good function repository thing, and it sounds like the design of symmetric difference looks perfectly reasonable to me here. Well, in terms of the list of elements that appear in an odd number of lists, is that the natural thing to do? Yes, it is. I mean, that's what people normally do for that, right?
Yes, I think so.
It's kind of weird, but yes. It's kind of weird. I don't know if it's very useful. I mean, are we sure we want the Farog's case?
It's what symmetric regions difference does, or region symmetric difference does.
All right, fine. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Someone is asking irrelevant questions. I'm sorry about mean and missing data. Not the right group to ask that of. There are good answers, but this isn't the right group. Boolean generalization of subset Q. That is wild. It's interesting.
Well, if we are not going to have Boolean union, then we really don't need this one.
Right. Boolean relation Q or something. I mean, what would it be? It would be, is the thing you are presented with in this relationship to... Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, very quickly on table while, which I have to say I'm just amazed we don't have.
Well, here I'm a bit, I mean, there are two possibilities of taking this, in the table sense or in the while sense.
Well, what I mean by this is keep making the table, right? Or am I crazy here? I mean, it's like we're making table I squared, I less than... I see what you're saying. You have to... What's that?
Well, I was basically going to say exactly, but yes, that's the problem, right? What is the thing that's collected at each step with if you don't?
The truth is, what's collected at each step is I squared.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a table. The issue is this is a termination condition for a table, which you can do with return. Okay, I mean, if I say table of, if I greater than 10, return, right? Otherwise, I squared, I, 20, I believe I will get, oh my gosh, that's wild. Is that not what I want? Isn't that, I thought this worked.
Right. Table isn't a flow control.
No,
thing.
I know that, but I thought that it had some mechanism to do this. I mean, that's what I want. I want to be able to return early and exit the table.
Yeah, so this is a version of while using then something like so on rip.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, the question is what the syntax of the thing looks like. And the point is, you've got an initiation thing. I mean, you've got the table, you've got the initial table iterator. Now, the fact is, I don't think it could be multidimensional and be reasonable. Or am I wrong?
Well, I'm not sure. It's not clear to me how this can be one-dimensional yet. So it's hard for me to opine on multiple dimensions.
Well, I think this is just while, but we return the results of each iteration. So it would be like a while list.
By the way, the network finally came back. What are you saying? So you're saying...
So we use the same design as while, but we return whatever the body gives.
Except that while is full of side effects, whereas it would be nice to have a local variable here. I mean, so this would be the form, possibly. Table while, I squared, I up to 10, I less than 10. Or I less than 5 or something. Where this is a thing that you can compute from this.
But this was my question before. So I would think the test shouldn't have to be related necessarily to the iterator. Because if we do that, then we are entering the slippery road of extending the iterator syntax.
Wait a second. What do you mean not related to the iterator? You mean it could be just time of day is greater than whatever?
Exactly. Like while. In while, there's no iterator. So why do we need to? If you need an iterator, then the user has to introduce a local variable there and control it from the test.
No, but this is a convenient thing, because the basic issue is you're doing a table and you realize you're trying to make a list of things, but you want to stop in making that list somewhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but imagine that in the first argument you have a very complicated mathematical operation. Would you somehow take into account the result of that in the test?
Well, I know that's a good question. I mean, so it could be. I mean, it will get more obscure if you start having things where you say #1 is the result, #2 is the like map indexed and so on.
Right.
And Ali on the live stream is asking about fold while, which is a good question.
So that's why I separated into two families first, and I wanted to know with which family it goes. Whether it's
I don't like setting. I hate the proceduralism of while. So, I mean, I would like to see something where no variable is ever actually set. So, in other words, the test is something that is a local test, not some side effect test.
A test in the iterator variable.
Right. So, I mean, so one possibility is it's a I mean, you may hate the extra lists, but one possibility, well, I suppose we can have a special case for a flat list, right? So it's a 3-argument thing, and we have so the expression, a list of iterators, and then an early exit test in the third argument.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that table has already, defined itself by having a varargs iterators.
Right, which is why.
Okay, so there's an alternative possibility. Okay?
Right, so I guess
if you a decorator, some kind of exit early. I mean, that was what I was trying to do with that if that didn't work.
But in the same way that
what
table,
about an option to table?
Will we want a do while? Because this iterator can also be requested in do with an iterator.
Yeah, I understand.
So
there could be a decorator for the iterators. So this iterator here could have a decorator.
Exactly. Could be a list of 4 arguments, and the fourth is a condition.
Example, yes. Right. I mean, it could look like this. It could say table I squared. I goes from 1 to 10 in steps of 1. It's a 5th argument, by the way.
Yeah, sorry. Mm-hmm.
I less than 5. I think we considered this about 20 years ago.
Right. Although I guess my question to you is, what would be a non-trivial test that only applies to the iterator value that you might want to use, right? That one you could just...
Yeah, that one is silly.
Yes.
Right. I mean, the case that will be not silly is I cubed is less than 600, for example. That's not silly.
Right. Although, you can do that one as, as one cube root of 600.
Oh, yeah. Because I happen to be able to solve this, but I can easily make this something that I can't solve.
Yeah, we could do prime q of I or something.
Yeah. That's...
What is this? Sandra is suggesting something about table being able to make an association table, I think. Key value. I don't understand this quite. This is, I see, it's a question of we've already got things like I, ABC. What is the analog of association, of table for associations? We don't have that, do we?
Right, because you need a distinct key for every...
Yeah, we need it's effectively association map.
Right.
Which certainly does exist. Yeah, I think that this exit criterion...
Yeah, I think it's a little clumsy having to write out the 5, all
it's very ugly. But I mean, that could be done with some decorator there. Some symbolic wrapper inside the brace. Well, I mean, actually, the more natural thing to do would be to say table I squared, and then outside of this, something like, let's see. I mean, this is silly, but iterate until I 10, I to the 6th less than 300. That type of thing.
Yeah. I know that's more typing than.
Yeah, I know. It's but it's not easy to do this. I'll say, look, there's a particularly silly name for this.
I wonder if, maybe we just want to allow a rule, right? Like exit, or.
Yeah, actually, Carl is suggesting break, which I thought one of these worked on here. I just don't know what.
Yeah, no, break is the one that's really, really
broken.
Well, it's designed. It's not broken. It's just designed for very specific things.
All right, so look. The cases we can look at are this kind of procedural idea of an if break type thing, which I don't think is crazy, and might be easier to understand and more flexible than one of these things which decorates the iterator.
I was thinking that because this condition imposes a limit, perhaps it's a generalization of the third argument of the iterator. Because the 10 in the
I see what you're saying. It's the starting, and then it's this is. Yeah. Okay. So fine. So that's probably where the that could be where we decorate it. Okay. We're not going to finish this discussion right now. There was one comment from Ethan on the live stream. We should fix parallel functionalities fraught with issues. Even things like monitor of parallel do doesn't work. Humph. Is that right? So if I do, what's that?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what that means. So.
This is probably going to blow up my computer, so I'm not going to go that high. That, by the way, is a very ugly.
Right, because all of the i's are in the local, are in the slave kernels, not in the master kernel, and the master kernel has a connection to the front end, and it has a connection to the slave kernels. The front end does not have a direct connection to the slave kernel, so it can't update. Right.
So what you're saying is the I inside the parallel kernels is a separate I from the I in the monitor.
Correct, because that's the one in the master kernel. That is what the front end sees.
I mean, isn't this the horror of not having a shared memory model, right? I mean, we don't have a shared memory model, which has, I don't know whether it's horror, but I mean, if we had a shared memory model, then the I would be the same I. But then we would have all kinds of, locking, issues.
Right. Well,
I mean, this is an interesting question, how one should do this, because, accessing the value of I in one of the slave kernels should be possible.
Right. So I guess monitor would somehow need to specifically know about like parallel do. Right. So the problem is that, I don't think monitor has deep knowledge of the functions, right? It would. Well, okay. So I guess there are two questions. One is, monitor would need to know what are the names of the I's on the different slave kernels. or somehow access them. And the second question is, and which is more of a John Foltz question, is can the front end can we asynchronously update that value?
Sorry, what was that? By the way, I'm reminded of something here from comment on the live.
So if do the monitor with just a normal do.
I just point out this is going to work.
Yes.
I mean,
it's horribly inefficient, but it works.
Is it horribly inefficient?
Well, you're creating the full list of 20 things, and then you need to create a new list where you've through normal evaluation.
Yeah, I mean, arguably the compiler could do something cleverer here.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. But go back to what you were saying about
right. So if you remove the parallel from that monitor input and just do a normal do. Right. So there's a single I there, and it's being updated asynchronous. Right. The printed cell there contains a single. Right. That cell isn't changing. It contains a single dynamic, which is being asynchronously updated between the kernel and the front end, which have the link, right? The asynchronous link for dynamics. The question is, can that asynchronous link somehow connect to the slave kernels?
I understand.
And I have no idea. That's a John Foltz level question that I have no insight.
Well, and Roman for the whole parallel. Okay, this is a good question for the core software engineering meeting. Maybe Sushma, could you bring it to that meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Who is PMing that meeting now, by the way?
Carla.
Okay. Okay, I think we have to wrap up here.
Okay.
It's thanks everybody here, and thanks to folks on the live stream. A lot of good comments, much appreciated. And we will be look forward to version 12 coming out the beginning of next week, and I look forward to doing a live stream. I think we may have some other live streams on Friday. I'm gone for 2 days here, so we won't have any for 2 days, but we probably will have something on Friday, and we'll definitely be having some exciting stuff on Monday or Tuesday. All right, good. Talk to you all soon.